Hello and welcome back to Trend Watch 777. So this is continued coverage of the Nancy Guthrie case, and I'm just fixing my camera a little bit. So we're going to be watching a video about the pathologist. He'll be talking about the details of the blood that was found on her property on the doorstep outside. And then we're also, the second video we're going to be watching is about the backpack. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here as soon as I find my mouse. All right. Okay, this is the first video. Shout out to Fox News.
Developments in the desperate search for Nancy Guthrie are coming to light as officials issue a description of her possible abductor. We're also learning for the first time about crucial evidence found inside of Nancy Guthrie's home. Let's take a look at all the major pieces of evidence and clues so far. So the newly discovered image and video from the doorbell camera, that's going to be critical for that criminal profile. We'll get to that later. Nancy's front door camera was disconnected. That helps us with the timeline. The blood found on the porch was Nancy Guthrie's. That's also the patterns there. We'll get to that later. Can tell us what condition Nancy left in. The pacemaker lost connection with the phone. This gives us, again, a timeline of everything that's happening. The alleged ransom letter sent to news outlets haven't been confirmed if this is the abductor yet. They also found, this is new yesterday, a glove found in Nancy's home. Now, this glove right here, we don't know if it's that exact glove, but we know there was a glove. And then finally, the FBI releases the description of the male, 5'9" to 5'10".
I know in one report they said there was more than one glove that was found.
Average build, again, the profile of the abductor and the suspect's brand of the backpack identified. We know that this backpack is only at Walmart or from this company online on their website. All critical for this investigation. Let's bring in Dr. Priya.
And also I want to add there was also a video that that the FBI was interested in. I don't know if it's connected to the case about this guy who was creeping around somebody's backyard and trying to climb a fence or something. So I haven't heard anything else about the video, but the video did pique the FBI entrance, but I haven't heard anything more about the video.
Energy forensic pathologist, she's going to help us understand what the blood spatter on Nancy's front porch tells us about the state she was in. Dr. Banerjee, can you give us some information about the pattern of that blood spatter and the impact on this investigation?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me. This close-up is fantastic at showing that the drops are landing as circles, and there's different sizes, but you can see very large drops. And I use that word drops or drips. So that is a pattern you see in blood spatter that shows that it's falling directly vertical down, like perpendicular down from a height. It's hard to say exactly where on the body it's coming from, whether it's the head or the hands, but it is dripping from a height. And so it's important to see that they're separate droplets.
Could it be that she was bleeding from her nose and he had her like over his shoulder like that? That's what I'm thinking.
There's not a huge pool of blood, but there's definitely some sort of fresh injury that she's dripping from. And I can say she because it's been confirmed by DNA that it is Nancy's.
I want you to weigh in on this because Dr. Michael Baden has a similar theory to you, and I want to make sure you're on the same page here. This is what he said. Nancy Guthrie is bleeding from some area, either the hand or the face. The nature of the blood spots with little pale centers or donut shapes are typical for drops that come from the nose or the mouth because they're mixed with air. That means she's coughing up blood or dripping from the nose. Otherwise, there would be a dripping from a cut from above, possibly the hand or the face. Do you agree with that analysis?
I think if it's breathed out, it's finer, but if it's a drip, it's quite possible to show the pattern that's there. Some of them have a little bit more clearing, like target like, and others are more solid. So I don't know if it's completely respiratory, but it could be anywhere, the nose, the face, the head, the hands. And she's older, so I don't know what medication she's on, but we have to remember that, she might be have a medical condition or on medication that prevents her from clotting. So she could bleed quite a bit from just a little cut even, or a scrape. So yeah, you can see some of them definitely do have clearer centers and some are more solid. So it's quite possible it could be from the nose or the mouth. Again, the upper area or the hands as drips.
So, Doc, I have a different question in a different lane, but you're familiar with these labs and how to get DNA. How long
Yes.
does DNA typically last on an object or a glove in this type of
Right.
climate, like outdoors? I mean, it's easier, I'm assuming, to contain that DNA when it's indoors on something that was dropped, but outdoors with weathering and all of that. Tell us about timetables on that.
Right. So there's no certain minute or hour, but you're very astute. So inside the house is going to be a more normal environment, right? Controlled. So that's going to be our best bet. Something outside, it is very hot in Arizona. It's exposed to the elements. I don't know if it's rained or not, but once it's secured, it's obviously in a better state. You do have to worry about the elements breaking down biological material. And so that is a risk. Now, technology's come a lot further where you can have even degraded DNA can be profiled. So I have a lot of confidence in the systems being used to type the DNA if it can be retrieved from the evidence.
Doctor, your expertise has been invaluable. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Okay, so shout out to Fox News for that video, that report. And so this here video is about the new details about the backpack.
The search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie intensifies as the FBI doubles the reward for information leading to Guthrie's location or an arrest and conviction. The FBI releasing a description of the suspect seen on Guthrie's doorbell camera the night she disappeared. A man approximately 5'9" or 5'10" with an average build is how they describe him. Now, authorities have also identified the backpack that the suspect wore. It is a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker backpack. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kaylee McEnany here with my co-host, Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports, Donna Rotuno, criminal defense attorney and Fox News contributor, and the host of the new podcast, Crime and Justice with Donna Rotuno, debuting on Wednesday. And Charles Payne, Money Man, we call him Charles the Money Man, host of Making Money on Fox Business. Well, let's start here. Investigators have also been requesting home security footage from Nancy Guthrie's neighbors, specifically looking for video from January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight and January 31st between 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. Unclear why they zeroed in on those two specific time periods. Meanwhile, TMZ founder Harvey Levin says that the individual who previously reached out to the network, claiming to know the identity of the kidnapper and offering to share it in exchange for 1 Bitcoin, has reached out again to complain.
This one has a different tone. What he's saying is, he doesn't feel he's been taken seriously. He feels he's been ignored because nothing was deposited into the Bitcoin account. We've been checking that all day. Nothing's been deposited. But he goes on to say that the reason he wants the Bitcoin is because he will become, the way he put it, he'd be labeled a national rat. And that on top of that, he fears retaliation and that he needs to lay low, go underground, and he needs money to survive. There are some ominous things in this letter, but he ends it by saying this is his second and last attempt, but he says he's definitive here that he can lead authorities to the kidnapper, and he's very clear on that.
Let's bring in Paul Morrow, retired NYPD inspector, attorney, Fox News contributor, and host of the weekly Rap Sheet on Fox Nation. Paul, I want to zero in on this backpack, which was previously identified by the media, but now we know it is definitively a 5-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. It is sold exclusively at Walmart. I have done a search of the Tucson area. In the greater Tucson area, there are 17 Walmarts there around Tucson. This seems like a big clue. Find out if he bought this in Tucson. Look at those 17 Walmarts.
Yeah, absolutely, Kaylee. And I can tell you from having dealt with Walmart, they have a very, very professionalized security apparatus in place that's actually nationwide. So I'm sure that they can cut through a lot of the white noise of that to get to the purchase history of that particular item pretty exactly. That said, you got to hope a credit card was used in the instance that is in play here, because obviously if that's the case, you got a real pointer, and then you can drill down on who those people are that had a purchase history with this thing relatively recently, and you can explore those leads. The problem becomes if they paid cash and if it was a while ago. According to my sourcing, there are varying protocols among the different stores as to how long they retain video. And as a result, some of them are 30, 60, 90, 120 days. It varies, and it overwrites the video. So as a result, what you need, if it's a cash purchase, is to be able to get this person on video and hope it was recent enough that the video still exists and you can see it. But undoubtedly, narrowing it just to one store, however big it is, Walmart being very big, it's a very, very big clue here. And I would argue maybe the best clue they have right now, at least that I'm aware of, outside of that video we've all seen at the house.
Donna.
Well, speaking of narrowing things down, we've now heard the fact that we have a height sort of parameter here between the 5'9" and 5'11" that they believe this perpetrator is between those heights. So how does that help law enforcement weed through some of these tips that are coming in? Because we've heard, especially since that video was released, there have been so many people who've come forward with tips to the FBI.
Right. So, we've been talking about this on the weekly wrap, you, me, and Josh. And, I think the key here is that how definitive they've been here about the height, because very often you get a pretty good height estimation up front with your sort of first blush crime scene analysis or video analysis. They use these ratios and things like that, and you can get a pretty good range. But as we saw, they brought in a team to do some more detailed analysis using apparently lasers inside that tent that we saw go up and then disappear, and they didn't want the glare to interfere with that. And then they come out with a very, very definitive 5'9", 5'10". That's what this guy is. That tells you, obviously, as you go through things like the purchase history that we just described, if it is a woman who's 5'2", all right, well, that's going to go to the bottom of the pile. And so that's part of the winnowing process that has to go on here, because you have to cast such a wide net.
Yeah, and Emily, the 5'9", 5'10", that's about the average height of a male in the United States. So it doesn't necessarily narrow it down, but helpful nonetheless if you're screening footage at, let's say, Walmart.
Look, anything definitive is helpful, even if it feels overwhelming statistically when you first hear it. Polly, I want to ask you something. So on the 5th of February, you asked the Bureau during a press conference, we heard you live, asking about genealogical testing and essentially whether the Bureau would be submitting the DNA for any type of testing, but you referenced genealogical, and the Bureau responded that right now the DNA aspect of the case is being handled by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, they said. But then they said, should we get to that point, yes, that would be an option for the FBI to assist. I'm wondering your thoughts on that question and that answer now that we've learned a little bit more about Pima County sending some things to be tested over there all the way to Florida and not Quantico.
Right. So the reason I asked that question, 10 days ago now, whatever it is kind of because of where we are now. So I intuited that we may end up where we are now, which is the following. The sheriff had said prior to my question that we have sent the most likely DNA from the perp to the lab for testing, and we expect a quick answer within 12, 14 hours. When I asked that question, it was after that window, so I knew, okay, they didn't get a one-to-one hit. So what are they going to do now? Normally, that would be the FBI. We saw it in the Koberger case. We saw it in the Rachel Morin case, where they do that more penetrative DNA analysis, the genealogical analysis that gets you to possible family members, anybody, they call it consanguinity, that is, that has blood relations in common. And sometimes it's very low. You get a second cousin, and you get a pool of 30 people, 20 people. You got to narrow it down. In Koberger, they ultimately got to his father in Pennsylvania. They looked at him as one of the possibles, and lo and behold, they see he's got a son that lives 10 minutes from the crime scene out in Idaho. So that is when they really focused on Brian. So my question was, okay, since you seem to have not gotten a hit up front, are you going to do that? And that would normally be the Bureau. That's why there's a little bit of controversy, and that's why I got the reaction I got at the press conference, because I think they might have thought, like, did somebody leak tomorrow? Because I asked them, not knowing about the glove that's in play now. And they must have been thinking, does he know about the glove? Because that's the glove that we all heard now went down to Florida that the Bureau doesn't have, that they're saying they want to test themselves.
Hey, Paul, it's Sandra here. How curious are you about this gray truck that neighbors said that they saw canvassing the area during the daytime and nighttime hours leading up to all of this? Nancy Grace is putting a lot of emphasis on finding that vehicle because of the fact that they have traced the DNA of the blood on the front steps directly to Nancy Guthrie. And if she was bleeding at the time that she was taken from the home and put in that vehicle, for example, she said it's almost impossible to clean a vehicle entirely of blood. How much weight are you putting into that?
You know, the vehicle has been a very mysterious node in this entire thing, because very clearly he didn't walk there and then walk out with her. So there has to be a vehicle here someplace. If you've been up in the areas, I have, parking the...
Right. I would imagine there have to be some neighbors' cameras or something that could have caught that vehicle. It's just mind-boggling that the technology that we live in today and the amount of doorbell cameras out there, Ring Nest cameras and Google Nest cameras and all that, and I'm not hearing about other neighbors coming forth with some video. That's just, the case is just weird.
Car for something like this on the street is a non-starter. He had to pull into the driveway or do something else, like park someplace nearby and go through the backyards or something. Because remember, I don't think that he actually came in the front door unless miraculously it was unlocked or somebody unlocked it for him. Those front doors, the front doors out here in these low adobe homes, they're really heavy oak. He's not just going to get through that quietly. So my own supposition here is that he would have gone around the back and gone through sliding doors, which are reportedly there. All of this leads to the idea that there is a vehicle in play here. And so if you can find that vehicle, yes, you're going to probably be able, using luminol and various other ways of looking at it with the phosphorescent lighting, you'll be able to pick out, okay, there was blood here, and then we can try to type it. The other thing with the vehicle, and this is a shot in the dark, but let's remember something. Most Ring cameras, or the Nest camera in this case, operate off of batteries. And just because he pulled it off the wall doesn't mean it went dead. And I have not heard that they physically recovered the actual thing, the camera itself, which means it would have still been broadcasting. If he put it in the car, you might have gotten a look at the car if they can undo that code. You might even get audio of him talking or something, or whatever happened in terms of, what you could hear. So it only would be limited by when it goes out of range of the Wi-Fi. The limiting principle there is not the camera, it's the strength of the Wi-Fi signal. And it's usually 100, 150 feet. So all of this goes to the idea of, can we find that car? Are there tire tracks? Did you pick something?
That's a very good point there. That's a very good point, because if he did put the camera on his possession, then it should be able to retrieve an audio or video, or maybe both. That's a very good point. So it would pick up the signal as long as he within the Wi-Fi range, meaning if he went in the house, from the house as well as to the car, if it was parked in a vicinity, and it was still able to pick up that Wi-Fi signal. That's very good. That's good.
Up nearby on a camera, and that's what you're hoping for relative to a vehicle.
Yeah, the inside footage is key, and we know Kash Patel's statement for back earlier in the week, I believe it was Tuesday, referenced multiple removed recording devices, plural. So my question has always been, was more than just the front door removed? That camera, Charles.
Yeah, Paul, I want to go back to the the most recent thing from TMZ, and the use of the word rat. It seems to me that that's really, if indeed this person knows who the perpetrator is, it suggests a close either friendship or kinship to the perpetrator and or maybe someone in the Guthrie family. I mean, as a law enforcement, I know that kind of word has to sort of say, okay, maybe it gives us a clue as to where we should look.
Yeah, that's interesting. He said he didn't want to be known as a national rat. And then what makes it, this guy, whoever sent that note, it tells you the wording that he put in that note, it tells you and shows you the moral compass of this individual. Here we got an elderly woman, 84 years old, and he know who the kidnappers are or have information about how to get to them, and he's not being forthcoming.
Or maybe where we haven't been looking.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, let's tease this out. If the letter is bogus, and I think most of us feel that it likely is, okay, then we don't need to pay attention to it. But let's say it is legitimate, and of course, as law enforcement, you got to admit any possibility here and make sure that you're looking. So they've offered this larger reward, which many of us have been asking for a long time here, because you want to incentivize people around this situation. Hey, I think I have a possible here, and you know what, $50,000, he's saying he wants to go underground, he needs it to live. I don't know where he's going to live that long on $50,000. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money. Now it's 100, that's more than the single Bitcoin. And the idea that he doesn't want to be a rat, you know what, the truth of the matter is that perps, criminals, they'll give up their mothers for $100,000. So this idea that he's adhering to some code of honor, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, and I just want to let our audience know that any moment we will have remarks from President Trump. He went wheels up on Marine One at 12:05 p.m. Eastern time. So we have what they like to call chopper talk, some back and forth about Kristi Noem and CPI numbers. We will play that the moment that we get it. Paul, looking back at this note, it feels like we are a long way off from where we were 1 week ago. We were all thinking about this ransom note that TMZ had, two other outlets had. It begins to be 5 p.m.
And it just seemed like the information they bring forth now, this is information that should have been out day one and day two. Looked like it was falling from a heightened area. I mean, what they're talking about now should have been out days ago. This is day 13. The day 13, we should have the person apprehended and know about the whereabouts of Mom Guthrie. This investigation is off the hook.
p.m. Eastern time. I was on the air then, and this other note comes back, and we were thinking this was a ransom situation. We're very far from that moment 7 days ago, and people are admittedly a little frustrated here. No one knows what happened, and it doesn't seem like everything's pointing in one direction.
Yeah, fair point. Look, I go back to, I use the Koberger case as a reference a lot of times because the public knows it. The public was very frustrated in that horrific case as well. And people by the third day were calling it a cold case and all this stuff. And look what happened there. It took 6 weeks. And in fact, the genealogical DNA that I was asking about ended up being really dispositive, one of the real pointers in that case. But it takes time because you end up with a pool of people and you got to check through it. The added metric in this one that I think makes people so frustrated is that it's an abduction, and Nancy is, we all want to believe, still out there alive. And so everybody is hoping against hope that you're going to hear from the ransomers here, and that's, I think, the added pressure that everybody wants a quick solve, because you have an 84-year-old woman who reportedly needs life-saving medication within 24 hours, and obviously we're well past that. And just to that point, there aren't that many medications that are that sort of absolutely necessary. There's type 1 diabetes. There's some heart failure medications. We know she had the pacemaker. So I'm wondering if that might have been not an exaggeration, but maybe a little over-dramatized. Did she need it to live? Or is it something that is safer to have My point being, we're all operating on the assumption that she's still out there, and if we can get to this guy, we can find her.
And Donna, as frustrating as it might be for the public, you've worked on a lot of these cases. Each case is its own case. Yeah. The Tyler Robinson case, for example, there were so many eyes on Tyler Robinson. There was DNA. There was a lot more evidence there right in front of investigators, which is why it was a little more abbreviated in finding Tyler Robinson.
Yes. Yeah, here the problem is they don't know. They don't, what we have. We have this video in front of the house. We have the little pieces of evidence that they found. We've seen the blood, but there's no true motive here because, again, if you're looking at these letters and you're not believing that these letters are true, then what was that, right? Is that somebody that's just jumping in to sort of join this hoax? If it was a true kidnapping, you would think that there would have been multiple communications. The communications would have gone directly to the family. It's not like it's hard to find a way to get to Savannah Guthrie. So you would be expecting there to be multiple communications, and as the days are going on, they would become more and more dire and more frequent, right? We have this body, we want to get rid of this body, and we want to exchange that for money. So I think that's why we're so far away from that issue, and so that's why law enforcement has to go on these other, in these other directions, because you can't be single focused because you may be missing what's going on. If you look at this request for the cameras, right, they're now going to other homes and asking people for cameras. That could be because they think maybe they walked through the areas in the back. Maybe they think you'll be able to see lights flashing. Those homes are far back. And so because they're far back and the cameras are there, you may not be able to see actual vehicles, but if you can see flashing lights of cars, getting an idea of what time they actually left that house and moved different ways, maybe you can then go look at license plate readers or, where that car may have been at a given time, given what you're seeing on other people's cameras. So, they're doing, I have not seen an investigation this thorough, at least from the FBI, that we're all knowing about in a very long time. They're really turning over every stone that comes their way. And as of now, we really don't know what else they know.
To that point, turning every...
I don't know. It seems like they're moving mighty slow. But then again, they did say that it does take time. But they're not coming out with any new concrete information. The information that's being regurgitated is information we already know. And it should have been information from day one. But they're reporting it like, breaking news, oh, this and this and this, It haven't, nothing new.
Over every stone. I look at that driveway and I often think, I feel like there's a big frustration with the American public following this story, saying, worried about the early days of this investigation. There were vehicles up on that property almost immediately. They didn't tent it off till, 10 days after learning of her disappearance, the front door, which was the scene of this now video where this man approached the front door and the blood splatter.
But this is supposed to be a thorough investigation. Come on now, give me a break.
Curious, was there any more blood found in the driveway? Did they turn over every stone? Where did that blood stop if there was?
And then also remember yesterday they put up a white tent. What was the purpose of the white tent? What the tent was up for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then later it was taken down. But what was the purpose of that? I'm curious about that also.
Would that indicate that there was a vehicle that pulled up right then? I feel like there's just so many questions that hopefully they know the answers to, but the American public hasn't been privy to, and it makes this so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And Emily, we're about 30 seconds out from the president here, where he touts jobs numbers, among other things. We will take you to that when we get it. But just quickly, another frustration is, what is the motive here? To Donna's point, if there's no ransom back and forth, what is the motive for taking an 84-year-old woman?
And as this investigation has unfolded, think about in the first moments, a missing 84-year-old woman who did not show up to, view church. Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno.
Okay, so there you have it, y'all. That's the update. So now we know the backpack is specifically from Walmart, and they sent the blood. What they say, sent the blood, something about the blood. Sending it off for pathology, the way that it fell. So they was examining that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Thank you for watching. And shout out to my new subscribers. And as always, keep the Guthrie family in your prayer. Okay, I'm out, y'all. Be blessed.